Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, I'm taking the Big Daddy Linux challenge once again, this time with Arco Linux, right after this. So the last week the challenge was to install Arco Linux, and so rather than just jump in and try to install the thing, I thought I would do a little bit of research and figure out what it was, because I'm really not all that familiar with Arco Linux, and I know a lot of you are. Arco Linux is the version I'm going to be looking at is version 20.2.12, which I believe is the date of the release, which would have put it somewhere around, I think it was actually released February the 13th of 2020. So I'm going to be doing an install today, and then I'll give you what my final thoughts are on it as we get toward the end. But, this was an interesting release. I have gotten from a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but several users have complained that, hey, you're using VMs and not real hardware. And I discovered something during the installation of this distribution that should highlight and pinpoint that from a security perspective, it is never a good idea to just take something you're unfamiliar with and stick it on hardware that's connected to your network. Because if you do, and there is malware, you have just infected your entire network. But as we'll find out, it turned out to be a false flag, but you should never just take something and throw it on hardware connected to a network, ever. Because unless you know this person or you know the source of the distribution emphatically, I wouldn't do it. And so now, this is a good lesson today, and as to why you don't just want to throw something on hardware and just start using it. Arco Linux is a distribution breakaway from Arch Linux. From what I could see, and of course this information comes from the internet, so it has to be true, right? That it actually came from Arch RTD2, and that became Arch Merge, which was formed by Eric Dubois, and that name then changed as the system built up to Arco Linux. So it's a distribution for those who want to learn Arch Linux without the trial and error method that Arch uses. Plus, you can start anywhere along the chain. There are there are 6 major phases that you can pick to start from. So you can start from ground zero with a very minimal build, and you can build up to a desktop environment that supports many different desktops or window managers, whichever you prefer. You can you can start with a system that's kind of built up for you, and then you can then tailor it to your needs, just like you do with any traditional distribution. Or you can start with a very minimal build, and then you can build up from the command line. You can create your own ISO file, which contains the packages and the configurations that you need and want to preserve, so that you can keep repeating that if you want. So to place it on more than one machine. So yeah, and this is a very interesting concept, and I'm kind of glad that BDL picked this one. To me, this is old stuff. I mean, I've told you before, I started out on Unix, and in those days, the only thing we got was a tape. There was no bootloader for that, and you basically hand-loaded the boot. So, yeah, that's kind of old hat for me when you start from the ground zero with a command line. There wasn't any configuration that was done for you, and there wasn't any desktop managers or even Windows managers in those days. About the best thing you could do was you could foreground and background a task, but being able to handle multiple terminal sessions came later. But anyway, I'm going to cover this because it might be of interest to you, and that's really more important to me. So Arco Linux it is a rolling release, just like Arch is, but they do provide releases so that, and I believe those come out once each month, somewhere around the middle of each month. And so, yeah, you can start with a particular release of it, and then you can keep it up to date over time. And instead of using documentations, Arco's approach to this is very unique. They produce videos on each specific task that you might want to complete. Now, the videos aren't in any succession of steps. Start here, then do this, and then go follow the video, and then do the second step. They don't necessarily follow that. Rather, they approach this from the standpoint of they don't know what you want to accomplish, and so they give you these videos that you can use. Now, sure, there's getting started videos to help you do the initial install of each one of the phases, but then after that, it's up to you what you want to decide to put together in your environment that is good for the type of workflow that you have. So, in that respect, I think that's very good. And the videos are all well done. They're all very well done. I was impressed with the quality of the videos and the ability for them to explain in very, very easy terms how to do step-by-step work to get something installed. Now, of course, there's always the case when any kind of documentation, manual, video, there is an assumption that you have some level of understanding of Linux when you jump into these things. And so, yeah, and they don't tell you what that is. So you really need to think about where you want to begin. What is your goal? Where do you want to end up? Or do you want to? Let's talk about the project versions first. So there's Arco Linux itself. So that's the flagship developer's ISO, and that is a full-featured build that contains 3 desktops: XFCE, i3 Window Manager, and OpenBox. So you can start with that, and that's kind of like a traditional distribution. So you can start with that, and then from there you can pick and choose whether and even during the install, you can pick, do I have an NVIDIA card that I need drivers for? You can pick those. Do you have certain packages that you want, like LibreOffice or some developer tools that you need in order to get started, or a particular editor that you want? So you can pick and choose on the install, and it is Calamares. So you can pick and choose what you want from there and then have it install a nice baseline for you to get started with. Or you can just take that release and install it flat, and then come back and make the changes that you want from either the graphical user interface or from the command line. So it really depends on where you want to start with it. Then there's Arco Linux D. Arco Linux D is a build. That is starting from the command line. So that is it's a step beyond where Arch goes, but it's at least in the starting point, but it gives you a system that's functional, but it doesn't have a desktop. You have to put that together, and you can choose from a bunch of them, and we'll talk about that. And then there's Arch Linux B, and Arch Linux B is a very minimal ISO. That is what they consider their minimal ISO. And from that, it allows you to either build Arch the Arch way, or you can build your own ISO files from that. So that's the way I understand it. So yeah, that's the way I understand it to be. So Arco Linux actually was formed, from what I can gather, February the 27th by Eric Dubois. And that was the rebranding and really the initial break between them and Arch. Their first initial release didn't happen until later on January the 5th, 2018. And again, this goes back to what I could find on DistroWatch. There isn't a Wikipedia page for this yet. Obviously, it is a pretty young distribution. And the latest, of course, was the one we're going to be looking at today. It currently supports 18 different desktop environments and window managers, and they say there's more coming. I don't know how much more there could be that's coming. That's a pretty comprehensive set of desktop environments and window managers. And if you can't find one that you like in there, there is a cheat sheet that is on their documentation page that you can go to that lists all of them. So I'm not going to do that here. It would just make the screen so small you wouldn't be able to read anything. But there are 4 display managers you can pick from. It supports LightDM and SDDM, GDDM, and also LXDM. The platform supported, as far as I could find, was x86, 64, 64-bit. I don't know if there's others. If you know of them, please let me know. But that is currently what I could find. It is a like I said, it's a distribution that's designed to help you learn. That is what it's tailored for. And there are 6 phases, like I said, each one of which is a starting point or in your knowledge. So if you start with the very base command line install, then you have tasks that you have to complete in order to bring it up to a fully functional desktop with the packages that you want. And the videos are structured around that so that it helps you put these steps in place in the succession that you choose. And then it allows you to gain more knowledge as you complete each of the steps. So it's really up to you where you want to start and what you want to put on your Arco Linux. So I think that's excellent. I think that's just an excellent way of approaching something I don't know if I would want to recommend this to a newbie user, but it certainly could be. It certainly could be. I mean, you could start with the Arco Linux install if Arch is something that interests you. Then just start building up things. So yeah, you culminate in each step the ability to create, you culminate in the ability to create your own ISO, which becomes your own personalized version of Linux, basically. With the packages and the configurations that you like. So I guess probably the best thing to do is, as always, I will jump to a full screen here. I'm going to use Virt Manager today. I have been using boxes for a lot of this, but I thought, well, okay, I'll do this. I'll do this through Virt Manager, since a lot of people also have been asking about that. So I'll go over here to my downloads folder, and I'll come down here to the Arco Linux. Now I'm going to be putting Arco Linux on, which is the full install with the 3 desktops today. Mainly because I have a lot of people on my channel that are new to Linux, and so I didn't want, if I had jumped down to Arco B, I probably would have lost them. So I'm going to just type in Arch here, and we'll go forward. I need, I guess, about 4 gig of memory. I'll give it 2 CPUs. And do I want, yeah, they recommend between 20 and 35 gigabytes of disk space, so I'll go, I guess it's 25 to 30, but I'll start with that. And I'm going to go ahead and customize this because I just have one thing I need to do. You can run this under BIOS, but I want to run it under UEFI or UEFI, and we'll start with that. So I'll go ahead and begin the installation here. And it comes up. Let's see, maybe move this over a little bit. It doesn't stay on that very long, and then it immediately boots. So, so if you're thinking about which one of those you want, you might want to move your cursor down one so that it stops the automatic boot timer. And then in a few seconds here, it should come up and start. So yeah, so it's given me a fairly large screen here. Hopefully that didn't, yeah. So you can start with doing a manual partition if you want to, or you can just partition the disk as you wish. Since this is under a VM, I'm not gonna spend time doing the partition, so I'll just go ahead and jump into Calamares to install it. And then the first thing it tells you is, this is very similar. I don't know if that's a fair thing to say because I know they have modified Calamares and are using a different version from Manjaro. So it's not really fair to say this is like Manjaro. It isn't. So here's where you can change. You can now see it's already picked this. But before we actually jump into the install, I want to show you what I do. So let me go over here first to my Fedora, and I'll go to download. So this should be the very first practice that you do. So, and I will tell you that I don't know if I have the SHA file. I may not. I guess I don't. So I will go get that. Let me go get that. And I'll bring this screen over so you can see what I'm doing. To find the signature files is a bit of a trick. So we're going to go out to Arco Linux. And I don't need the wiki. I need the actual website. So it's ArcoLinux.com. And where you start is right here, and then you pick your project. So here you can see kind of how it's organized. Phase 1 is where I'm going to begin today. And then I can go and start the download. But if you're more interested in phase 2, which starts with Arco D, you can go there. If you're interested in phase 3, this is installing Arch, the Archway, beginning with Arco D, and then you have your choice of all of these desktops here. So there's Awesome, BSP, WM, Budgie, Cinnamon. You can read this as well as I can, but you can see there's a lot here. I mean, there's an awful lot here. And then phase 4 is where you begin with Arch Linux B. So you can start anywhere you want to here. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all fine. But I'm going to start where I think would be of most interest to the people that watch my channel. So we should have, I can go to torrent. I don't know if there's any other choices here, but I'll go to Arc Linux, and it should take me to this site. Now, to find the actual signature files, I need to open the folder. And the signature file is right here. So I'm going to download SHA-256. And hopefully I have SHAR-SUM on the machine. I think I do. I usually use a different method, but those are I mean, it offers MD5 and some others, but let's see. Okay, so let's see what we have first in the sum. It's still not finding it, is it? It called it Arco. There it is. Okay, let's do Arco. Okay, so now I have now I know what my signature is, so I'll do a SHA-256 sum. And we'll just make sure that it matches. So you should always do this first. That makes sure that the signature that you've downloaded matches the one that the person that built the ISO initially is put up on the file, so it hasn't been, there hasn't been something changed in it. So that's the first thing we want to make sure. Then that's all good, so we can continue on with our steps here. So let's see. Let's go back to Virtual Manager. And what the second thing I want to do before I install this is I want to find my terminal window here, which should be Termite. There we go. And I'll close this for now, and we'll take this out as well. I should probably put a darker background behind that. So let me, even though this is the live CD, that's okay. At least you'll be able to see that better. So I'm going to go over to one of my servers that I host some of this stuff on. Hopefully you can see it. Let's see. Maybe not. Maybe the network's not up. Well, let's see. And let's see if it's there. No, the network is not up yet. Okay, so, okay, that's fine. We'll do this when we complete the install. So I'm going to go ahead and put the kernel without any NVIDIA drivers because I don't need that. And then I can pick if I want to, you know, how I want to manage these things. And there are options under some of them. If I wanted, you know, the K development or the code libraries, or let's see, internet probably gives me a choice of different browsers. So you can pick and choose what you want. I'm just going to go ahead and let it install its base. And then it does the same thing as a lot of these do for your time zone. And that's all good. Default US, that's good. And then I'll erase the disk. I'm going to do swap no hibernate. Now, if you want to encrypt the system, they now support that. I'm assuming that probably uses LVM in order to do the encryption. I don't need to do that because my machine is already encrypted, so that this is hosted on. But if you're putting this on hardware, you might want to do that. And I'm going to now, I've talked about this before. Typically, that should disable root. So the root account, that is. We'll check that and make sure. So then it just gives you this summary that, hey, you're putting this on EFI, so it knows about that, and it is so good. So I'm going to go ahead and install. This will take a few minutes, and I will be back. So it's, let me make sure, yeah. So it's done. I'm going to, I'm going to go ahead and restart this. And it, like any other, the boot order is for the hard drive first over the ISO. So we'll boot into our new installation here. And then you have this welcome app, and I guess the first thing I better go do is go fix my display. And so I guess we'll do, if I can find, there we go, if I can find that one. That should get it large enough for you. And so the next step is to make sure that, well, let me drag this down because it's, there we go. That might help. So we've got some updates that we need to do. I'm going to go ahead and do mine from here. And then I'll probably reboot this afterwards. This shouldn't take too long. There's a lot of packages, but as the Arch guys know, the Pac-Man doesn't take a whole lot of time to install them. I'm just going to let this run out. So while that's going, I should be able to open another one of these, right? Yeah. Put this up here. I may have to go back into this way. Let's see. 122.237. Okay. Connection refused. So I need to install SSH. Server. I'll wait till this is done. Or I can maybe see if the package is here. You know. Just about done. I'm just going to let this play out so you have some idea about how long this is going to take. I don't know what it'll take on your machine. This is how long it takes on mine. If you have a faster machine, it won't take as long. If you have a faster network, it won't take as long. But yeah, this is just how long it takes for me. All right, so let's see if I can find RK Hunter. Oops, I guess to do a query, I still have to give it root, huh? All right, now found. So we'll do this another way. Yeah, go to Firefox. Chromium, no thanks. Let's see. And that should start downloading momentarily. Yeah, that's nice. Save the file, please. And that's done. By the way, while we're in here, 73. So not quite the latest, but close enough. Okay. I'm just going to untar it right here. This is the rootkit hunter, and I'm going to do an update on it so it updates its rules, and I'll go ahead and get rid of this. And I'll also change the background. That's probably not fun for you to read that, so I'll put it on something dark so this shows up. I know I could change the transparency, but I always like the transparency. All right, so the first thing that normally I would do is whenever I'm getting something from somewhere that I am not familiar with, and I don't trust the source, and I do not trust the source, I check to see if it's installed any rootkits. Currently, I'm under a VM, so I have some level of protection. Not a lot, but I have some level of protection from this getting out over the network. And this is running on a NAT, and my network does not permit NAT to utilize any part of the network. So ideally, the way you would want to do this is to put it on a virtual machine that is unattached to the network. But of course, then you would have a problem if you were trying to download packages as you were installing. So my advice is, use this on a DMZ. Whenever you're not sure of the sources that you're receiving from, do that. But yeah, and you'll find out here in a minute why I was concerned with this. Maybe. Maybe. We'll see if it comes up with the same problem I saw earlier. So rootkit RK, or the rootkit hunter, is very good, but like all things that are detecting signatures or looking for certain file names, which is why this works, you have to be careful with this because you can get false positives with it. And there we go. There's my problem right there. And this alarmed me. The sniffer is a known rootkit. And so let's go find out why it picked that. So I'm going to do a sudo, and this is why you don't want to just willy-nilly install stuff on hardware attached to your network ever. In fact, you might even want to do a virus scan on it first. I know that that's not a problem for Linux, but it will be. Trust me, it will be. So there's our problem right here. libkeyutilities.so.1.9, and also this one and this one and this one. These are all coming up as being marked as containing markers that may be a rootkit. And if I go back up here to the top, I might have to scroll back up here for a little bit. It'll tell me that it has found possible rootkits right there. So yeah, and then it should come down here a little bit further. Oops, went to buy it. Okay, it says checking for possible rootkits and directories, warning, found file, possible rootkit sniffer component. Now, when I saw this, I immediately went out to the Arco forums and looked up that this had been reported previously on an older release. This has been happening because this file name was the name of a rootkit injector that was around a long time ago. But yeah, so I mean, it turns out it is a false positive. It is not a rootkit. But you know, it's stuff like that that you should realize that you don't just go. Yeah, I know. I said this already. I'm not going to reinforce it any further. You know, being under a VM is not the end-all be-all to protecting your network, because if it is connected to your network and you have a rootkit that is able to replicate over the network, then your machines aren't safe. A VM will somewhat protect the host machine that is running the VM, but if you have your network up in the VM, you're still vulnerable. So it is all a question of mitigation and what you're willing to risk. But when I saw that, I was really concerned. Fortunately, the machine I tested on was not connected to the network, and so when I found it and when I had looked it out, it's just a habit that I go through. So I guess the other thing we need to do is I need to get my glances. I know that HTOP is already down, but I'm sure. Oh. Let's see. Let's do glances. I think HTOP and NeoFetch are already here. Yeah, NeoFetch is here. HTOP is here. Okay, so first of all, 1,203 packages installed with this. The kernel is 5.5.8, so the kernel is rolling from, I mean, that's pretty recent as far as I know, a fairly recent kernel. And then, HTOP is reporting 605 meg of memory in use with XF. This is XFCE, by the way, in case you didn't know. But yeah, so not bad, not bad. And then glances will of course include the buffers that those apps are using. It does not count the disk buffers, but it does count the buffers because you have cache built into the apps too. So if you're just looking at memory, total memory used, That's through HTOP. That's not a good signature of what your system. So about 900. It's a little hard to read. 912 meg. It looks like that it's actually using for the applications, and so. I mean, I guess we all have to get used to this. The adage is software expands to absorb all available memory, and that is so true. So if you have a 4 gig machine, it'll take it all, and if you have a 16 gig, it'll take it all. It's just the way things are going. Personally, anyway, I'm not going to go there. It'll just show my age. So. As far as the type of things that we can look and see what we have actually installed here, I guess, before we go down. Now there should be. So there's the welcome app. That's what came up before. That's this. And you can choose. So here's where you can choose your project and what you really want to do. And of course, it just takes you out to the website. So then at this point, I can then pick, if I wanted one of these others. Of course, OpenBox and i3WM is already on there. But if I wanted some others, like I could do that. Or if there was some other packages, I could do that as well. But there's, let's see, core info. What's that? Core information about the project itself. So so if you're interested in learning ArcoLinux, then YouTube will be your friend, because look at this, 1,200 plus videos. That's an awful lot. And there are a lot of people that have talked about it, and I know DistroTube runs ArcoLinux, and I know a few others of you use ArcoLinux as well. Let's see, what else do we got? That should be Thunar. Yep, it's Thunar. Which, Thunar is okay. It's not my favorite, but it's okay. It probably wouldn't be where I would leave this, but there's extra things that I like, and so I probably would go with something else. But that's my choice. I'm not telling you what to do. Let's see. The Rosetta image viewer, GPIC, a new image. Of course, we have GIMP and Firefox, Qubit Torrent, Vivaldi. Yeah. And then we have Chromium. Vivaldi is also not my favorite. It's pretty slow. At least in my experience, it's been pretty slow. VLC, good. And then we have Pulse Audio, I should say. Office, you'll notice that that is not installed yet. And I thought that they had, let's see what's in the fast track. I think this is the information about what to do to get started, how to set up the installer, and all that for when you're getting ready to lay this down on a real hardware system. I might come back around later and do that. I'm not going to do that tonight. So let me just wrap up here with this, and I'll give you some of my final thoughts before signing off tonight. So as you notice, I encountered something during my initial look, and even though it's a false positive, it serves as a reminder of proper security hygiene, as we say, before you install something. And those of you that ask me to install unfamiliar releases on hardware and then do my videos on them, not going to happen. Sorry. That's really a bad idea. And if you're following that practice, good luck. The installation went smoothly, and the videos provided, I think, are excellent places to learn. I think they're very well done. It's, they're not necessarily set up so you can just sequence through them. Rather, you have to kind of think about what you want to do. So does that make this a good beginner's Linux? Could be. It could be. I'm not saying that I would recommend throwing somebody into Arch the first go around, but based on, if you're somebody that is coming from Windows or Mac OS for the first time into Linux, I would have a hard time recommending this to you as the first place to start. But if you're somebody that's been in Linux for a while and you kind of have, like I've always said, get your wheels under you a little bit, and you kind of understand some of the different features that's available to you in Linux, and that's what I've been trying to do on this channel, is kind of talk a little bit about, here's some things that maybe you don't know about that aren't commonplace. And then here's some tools that you might consider using. So as you learn more about those things, I think Arco Linux is a very good platform in order to start out maybe on the easy side and then work your way over to the harder parts of understanding the more in-depth things of Linux, if that's of interest to you. If it's not, then okay, fair enough, no harm done. I'm not going to criticize you. I mean, I certainly won't. The point is choice, right? That's the whole point. So the performance of the system, I haven't really done any benchmarks with it, but just playing around with it inside of the VM is very quick. So no complaints about the overall responsiveness of the system. Would I consider moving to Arco Linux from Fedora? Yes, I think so. Fedora they're going down a direction that I don't really agree with. They have this thing where it's kind of like a Windows implementation where you restart after an update. I don't know who came up with that idea, but that is the dumbest idea I have ever heard. And that might be okay for workstations, but these guys need to be thinking about the servers. And that includes you, Ubuntu, with snaps. I mean, I don't mean to pick on you guys, but if you're doing auto updates in a server environment, that is the worst idea I could possibly think of, because if you're restarting a service, that's an outage. And if you're in a 5.9s or a 6.9s environment, that's unacceptable. And I'm sorry. And Fedora is starting to move down that way too. And I don't understand. Anyway, I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but I don't understand why the distributions are trying to do things automatically for us. That might be okay for workstations, but that's unacceptable for servers. Sorry. So you'll probably find yourselves locked out of the server room, not too distant future. Now, Fedora, of course, doesn't run too much. You don't see too many deployments of Fedora in the server farms, but Ubuntu, you do. Ubuntu, you certainly do. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video today. And if you did, please like and subscribe. If there's something I missed or something that you think I should cover more, that you know about Arco Linux that I should cover more, I'd be happy to do that. If you have a favorite tool that you would like me to cover, I'd be happy to do that as well. I've been getting a lot of really good suggestions from people on what to do. So. In the channel, so I really do appreciate that, and hope that continues. Anyway, as always, hope to see you all again real soon, and thank you all very much, and bye for now.